Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures, Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, On the Move with the Monsoon, Part 4. Presented by NatHab Expedition Leaders, Arpita Dutta and Conan Dumenil. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. Over to you, Arpita.
Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And yes, so I have been traveling during the monsoon for last 1 month, and of course that thought came to my mind to travel with you all, maybe a virtual one, but starting from the northeastern part of India to the Western Ghats. And why I chose this place, I told, but I'll just give a short brief for the people for those people who are joining in for the part 4 is so I have selected those areas which are like the biogeographical hotspot. So this biogeographical hotspot means that over the world it's been divided into different regions where there are kind of a similar kind of habitat with almost similar kind of animals sharing that ecosystem, and at the same time they are evolving and adapting into that various kind of habitat and the space in a same pattern. So that's why these are very important. And of course India has being a country with so much of biodiversity, and also we have this biodiversity hotspot, and that makes it special. And because of a harp enthusiast, and I know about Conan as well, he even loves reptiles, he has worked with reptiles, so yeah, we both kind of coming together to present this thing. And because the place where I have selected, I'm going to talk about, rather we are going to talk about, because from a certain place we both have been to this place in this monsoon, and that's why we thought of bringing our individual aspects and the perspective of this beautiful place. So here, where you see that elliptical circle, I was there. I started my journey from there, and then came to that orange line, which you see here, which is the Western Ghat, the peninsula of India. And it's a global biodiversity hotspot. These two places are, and it's like a hub for harp enthusiasts and also for nature lovers, because so much of endemic creatures and the flora and fauna, I think the way they have flourished in these areas where you won't see anywhere else in the planet, many endemic species I'm talking about. And also these places are considered as the miniature of Amazon, like the lungs of India, if you can think about. So in the next slide, let me tell you that why it is. So they are you see all this green, dark green line on the western side, and on the northeast also, they get the highest rainfall. And that makes it evergreen forest, and evergreen rainforest rather. And it actually has, even it is not raining, they have the highest amount of humidity. So a lot of creatures, especially the reptiles and amphibians, have the perfect place to thrive in. In the next slide, why this place is so special and why this place has so much of endemic thing. So we have to go back almost 150 million years back, when like the dinosaur ruled, and of course the world catastrophic event changed the face of the planet. And the Gondwana, that time the Gondwana racked by the tectonic movement, and of course India was attached to the Gondwana, then it separated from Pangaea almost 70 million years before. And while India got separated from the African plate and moving towards north to the Eurasian plate, it was on the move, it actually crossed a lot of hot spots, which triggered the movement or the speed of the Indian plate. So imagine a plate moves around 5 centimeters a year. But in case of India, because of the crossing of the heat points, it started moving rapidly, which is 20 centimeter per year, almost 4 times than the usual. And maybe that's the result of the Himalayas. We have the highest peak. We got the highest peak of Mount Everest. So yeah, and that's how, while the new theory says, while India was moving towards north, because it was very rapid, in a very non-scientific way, I can say that India, while moving, it collected a lot of animals into that area. And as India was attached to the African plate, we have found very similar fossils in these, like the western central part of India and Africa. And also due to this movement, a lot of plate movement and also a lot of volcanic eruptions, they are the formation of high mountains and a lot of cracks, which forms a lot of water flowing area. And that's why Western Ghat, it's not only for the most endemic species we get to see in India, but also they have local endemism. That means even locally the animals could not move or cross the mountain or the river. So that's why this place is very, very special. And with that, to the next slide, we will get that talking about a state called Goa, which is very small, just 1400 plus square miles area and covering a 33% of the forest. And why Goa is, just to introduce Goa, I think Conan would be the right person to talk, to let you know about the state a bit. Yes, Conan.
Thanks, Arpita, and hello to all our viewers. It's nice to be presenting back with you again. We were just talking how much fun it was. And for folks, for you watching, I cannot highlight how special this region is. Well, not just in the global sense, but also to us personally. I think for all, for a naturalist growing up in India, one of the first places you often want to go, the sort of the holy grail for learning about natural history is probably the Western Ghats, and if not the Himalayas and the Northeast India. So, and incidentally, when we were talking about this, we realized that both of us went to Goa within a few weeks of each other because of a very, very unique phenomenon that happens across. And we've actually been doing, both Arpita and I have been doing not just trips there, but also over the past couple of weeks, I've been covering various aspects of the monsoon because that's this really special time of the year to be out there. So just to take you back in history a little bit, to give you a little bit more significance of the region and what the weather played, the significance of the weather on the region. Let's go back. So Goa on the west coast of India, sort of the middle or almost southern west coast of India, as with a lot of other port cities, have been historically significant. So thinking about the times right from the early Phoenicians, the Arabs, the Romans, they all traded with India and the East Indies for centuries. And this was a region that was renowned for a few of its natural products, starting from spices to timber and various things. And it was also a seaport for the acclaimed spice route. Now, why are we talking about this? Is when we talk about the monsoon, so this is this annual rain that happens. Now, the monsoons have a pattern. You start off with the summer monsoon, and then we have the winter monsoon. And that's when the winds actually change directions. So traders through the centuries use these winds to plan their expeditions off to the East Indies, to India and Southeast Asia, so they can start trading. So they would come with the onset of the monsoon and leave with the winter monsoon. And if you didn't use these corridors, you would often spend days out, months out at sea. And we all know in tropical regions, there's this region called the doldrums, which there's absolutely no wind movement, there's no waves, there's nothing. And you have these, if you've read books or seen movies, it's these sailors sitting there with the ship with not a single breeze blowing, nothing, and you're just stuck there. But yes, the monsoons were important times to launch a trading expedition. And but most of this trade actually gathered a lot of steam and gathered a lot of momentum during the imperial times, during the colonization. We've had everyone, all the European countries actually come over here to trade with spices such as pepper, cardamom, clove, cinnamon, nutmeg, and also other crops such as coffee and tea. And spice was so important that pepper was actually used as a form of currency right up to modern times. And so, just to give you some perspective, Goa has a very strong Portuguese influence, and it continues even till today. There is a lot of community that has grown up due to the mixing of various colonial powers that have it. I owe my roots to the trade, the spice trade that happened, and that's where my heritage comes from. So it's all the more pertinent that and thanks to Arpita for giving the opportunity to talk about that today. So yes, so just to give you some perspective, the Portuguese landed in Goa about 6 years after Columbus landed up on the wrong continent. So in 1498 was actually when Vasco da Gama, and we all know the story of Columbus, was looking for a sea route to India. And so Vasco da Gama, one of the Portuguese explorers, was the first successful European influence, apart from the ancient Romans. In modern Europe, he was the first explorer to land in Goa. And then what that set the stage for was about 450 years of lucrative trade, and then also led to the colonization of a lot of parts of the landscape. And it wasn't just the Portuguese, but also the Dutch, the French, the Danish, the English were the last. So if you look along Goa's coastline, it has a beautiful coastline with a lot of inlets, river mouths, and small islands across. And these made perfect vantage points. When the consolidation of power was happening, these had perfect vantage points to build forts. So all across Goa, you will see the coastline dotted with these beautiful laterite rocks, a rock that is prominent in the region thanks to its geology. These are hard rocks which are found and then mined, and most of these forts are built in that area. And moving on to modern times, Goa has, like I said, a very vibrant culture, and I think part of that vibrancy is owed due to the centuries and centuries of mixing between cultures. And as you see, everything, and it's reflected in a lot of aspects, whether it's festivals, whether it is housing styles or building styles. As you see, this is a beautiful Portuguese bungalow, influenced bungalow, of course, with tropical considerations such as large windows and sloping roofs, and even the food. And I think for me, that's probably one of the best parts about Goa, and I see Arpita agreed with me there. The food is great. It's a beautiful mix of European-inspired or sort of Iberian-inspired dishes with a lot of Indian spice. And pork, fish, these are all consumed in large quantities. Again, it has beautiful coastline, like I was saying, and it is because of this coastline really that Goa is actually a very popular spot. Even in the domestic sense, in the Indian context, when you look at it, Goa is kind of sort of top of the list of places families want to go to or people want to visit. Over the years, it has become, because of its laid-back culture, its vibrancy, and a lot of cultural happenings around the place, it has become sort of known as the party capital of India. In fact, I think the tourism department markets it as 365 days of fun in the sun, things like that. So it is a popular destination even in India amongst Indians themselves. It has taken off a lot on the music scene. Now, this is not my kind of music, I must admit, but Arpita is probably more up your alley. But it is very popular. Internationally renowned artists come here, and there's these huge festivals, electronic music festivals that happen in Goa year-round. And a lot of it is also, apart from just the vibrancy of the culture and the easy outgoingness of everyone there. The other interesting thing is that, well, alcohol is really cheap in Goa. right? And they have traditionally they brewed this fantastic drink called feni, which is from the cashew fruit. Now we all know cashew nuts, right? And cashew nuts are popular as a nice snack, but it actually there's a fruit attached to the nut, and that fruit often and it's widely grown around the western coast of India, and that fruit often is discarded by most places. But the Goans distill this fantastic drink, which is very, very flavorful, but very, very potent as well. And so it's very common when you go to someone's house, they'll offer you a glass of homemade feni. And just on a side note there, Goa is also now becoming sort of the epicenter of a craft liquor trend that's happening. So you've got great gins coming out of Goa, you've got great rum coming out. They also grow sugarcane there as well. So it's from earlier, from sort of what used to be the hippie capital is now sort of becoming the hipster capital of Goa. But I mean, Goa is. But also it is very, very culturally strong. There's a lot of local livelihoods that are still prominent as well. Many people engage in agriculture, and one of the local industries, popular local industries, is fishing, of course, thanks to the wealth along its coast. So it's very common every nook and corner to find a little pop-up Sunday market or main wholesale fish market, as you can see here. And yeah, so it is a very, very vibrant place. And that's just to give you a little contemporary perspective into Goa. But I'm sure most of our viewers here, Arpita, would be more interested in in the nature side of Goa. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Conan. But it's not only Arpita. I think you have the same affinity towards Goa's forest. Just few minutes back, we were discussing that you actually want to settle in Goa because of the forest out there. And yeah, I think it's a dream for all of us to be there, because apart from the culture, the inhabitants, and the history of Goa, and being the party capital of the country, I think it also has the dense forest, which attract us every year to search for new things and to explore the forest. And Goa is a home for like the forest habitat has the varieties. It has the shrub forest, moist deciduous, semi-evergreen, evergreen, and also mangrove. So imagine in that small state, right? It is one of the smallest state of India, and having so much diversity, I think that makes the forest so special. Like, I have been to Goa for so many times, and hardly I have spent 1 or 2 days in the total tenure around the beach. It's always I straight move to the forest. So it's been amazing, and it is never over. And so this forest has a lot of undulating like slopes of mountains, valleys, a lot of rivers, almost more than 183 kilometers. The perennial river area goes, coastline, which has a lot of estuaries. And as I said, that the peninsular India is like the water tower for India, in the peninsular India, the Western Ghats especially. And it has beautiful waterfalls in Goa. 10 are very famous, but out of that, this waterfall particularly, which is known as the Dudh Sagar. So Dudh is milk, which is in the local language, like in Hindi, it's the milk waterfall, or the waterfall, like the ocean of milk, because how it falls from the top, divided into 3 racks, and how it covers the whole area. It looks like it's a pouring milk. And if you see on the right hand side corner, that blue thing is a train. So the train crossed that area. Imagine what a stunning view that it could be. So there are many waterfalls, of course, but with the waterfalls and with the habitat, we get many things to explore. In the last few, like, couple of like webinars, what I was doing with the monsoon, I have always mentioned about leech, and people have like asked a lot of things. So this is I could manage this time the picture of how we get leech. Like this is less rather, but yeah, thanks to the leech socks and the shoe, for which they couldn't penetrate though. But yeah, something you have to pay, right? So I think in the Western Ghats and Northeast, you pay for the leech and the small creepy insects to get all those beautiful creatures. Starting with a very small one, but it actually engage you because of their behavior. Is I'll start with the scaly insect, which are the butterflies. And trust me, this blue mormon, and there are many, but this blue mormon are pretty big, and the flashy colors. I mean, over here I could not capture properly. Conan knows that when they fly, you cannot escape. I mean, your eyes cannot escape that flight or that butterfly. It's so beautiful. And they, during this, after this monsoon thing, when there is a little dryness or there is little sun, they come out to for the mud puddling. So that's a beautiful view out there. But the speciality of Goa is the Malabar tree nymph, another large butterfly with a white and black dots on it. It has one of the most angelic flight. It's incredible. Like it flies always in the high canopy. Hardly you get them into, the lower canopy. Thankfully, this landed up into my height, so I could take the picture. But it's like a fly, then it's hover, then again it floats. So I think that makes it very special, and maybe because of that reason, it became the state butterfly of Goa. And after this butterfly, why I'm talking about the smaller things, even in the bushes, if you notice carefully, you might find this beautiful like creatures, a lot of colorful. Western Ghats and Northeast are full of colors. So this is a lantern bug. Look at the pattern, and this is the one I could manage. And there I have seen few. They are like varieties of colors and patterns, and there are a lot of leaf and tree hoppers as well. So yeah, that makes it incredible. But yeah, a lot of like insects part. Uh, Conan can introduce our feathered friends of Goa.
Yeah, thanks, Alpi. It's yeah, so not just in the bushes, but also up at the canopy. And I think one of the most charismatic birds of the canopy. Often you hear them a lot more than you actually see them. And this is the Malabar grey hornbill. Now, the hornbills are frugivorous birds. They feed primarily on fruit. They are known to take small mammals, birds, and reptiles, especially during the nesting season, for that extra bit of juice, like a protein shake in the middle. But these birds, often up in the canopy, the dense canopy, and they have such a raucous call, which they make out to signal to each other. It's a sort of a contact call. And I can't describe it, but I will give you some homework to do. Is when you go back, just go on YouTube and look up for the Malabar grey hornbill and listen to that call. Now, hornbills are able to amplify their sound because of this extra attachment on their beak, which they have. It's pronounced in some species, such as the great hornbill or the rhinoceros hornbill in Indonesia. It's acts as a huge boombox which amplifies their call, and from their casque or their beak, it's there. So yeah, that's one of the birds which is you hear them a lot more than you actually see them. Another bird that is super well camouflaged is the brown wood owl. Now, these are one of the larger owls we have here, and it's called a wood owl for very obvious reasons. They are a forest owl, and they again like the thick canopy. They like the thick secondary story. And if you look at their pattern, it's got such a molded pattern of breaking up lines, and it's just predominantly brown, and that really helps them camouflage. And of course, owls hunt. And so camouflage is not a bad thing to have in your armory and things. Moving on to the more colorful kinds, now this is a flame-throated bulbul. Now, incidentally, this is also the state bird of Goa. It is the state bird because it's also an endemic bird to the region, which means it's found only in this part of the Western Ghats and nowhere else in the entire world. Now, we have several species of bulbuls, and recently what used to be considered one singular species of black-breasted bulbul have been split after a lot of genetic studies. There are, of course, physical differences between a lot of these black-headed bulbul, so to speak, but the flame-throated bulbul is very, very distinct because it has this orange, reddish-orange throat patch, which lends its name. And this was, again, a picture I took a couple of weeks ago on my last trip. It was pouring rain for about 72 hours, non-stop, as long as we were there. And just the day we were leaving, and there was a short break in the rain, and just as we were grabbing our gear to get going in the car, these bulbuls landed up. There were a couple of barbets, and you could hear their calls and going. They have a beautiful call, so very shrill, sort of melodious call, and comes out and like, oh no, gotta get the camera out again. So out came the camera. I think one very hazy picture before we had to leave. But yeah, there's bird species in Goa. It's a fantastic spot. It's a birding hotspot. There's several species, more colorful kinds, which of course I'd be very, very, very happy to talk about. I know your favorite one is coming.
Yes, yeah, you are very right, Conan. It was pouring like hell. I mean, I couldn't see sun at least for this almost a month. Hardly I have seen. I mean, the sunlight was like a, spotting. Oh gosh, there is a sunlight, or there is a part of the sun. I mean, it was like that because it was only rain, rain, rain all throughout. But talking about the colorful and the dense forest, you cannot like miss it. Another thing, it is once you spot it, you cannot, like, your eyes won't take you anywhere, is the Malabar trogon. And that bird with a beautiful like color, and it lives in the dense forest. That's how they prefer the habitat. And because of its bright color, you can just somehow identify, because most of the time they are very quiet, but they are incredible with their behavior. They're very significantly, they make themselves different from the rest. So as we know that the bird love affairs start with, singing. So they are not the exceptional. They make a call, the male start the call like singing to encourage the mate, the female. But before that, it actually come out from that dense forest, in a broadleaf forest. So from the dense forest, they actually select a very open part, and it should be like a hanging, sometimes like a swing, and they will keep on singing. The female, somewhere where she could hear, she would reply back, and she doesn't come easily in front of him. It's like a total communication, and singing keeps on happening. And after that, when they both are convinced that yes, we have found our mate, then the female comes close to the male, and once they say, okay, let's start the process, let's make our house. So then these two, for over a month, they keep on searching. I think for many of the birds, they are mostly like, they find a proper place, they make the nest, and sometimes they keep it on fate that whether the brood is going to be successful or not. But for a trogon, they take over a month just to select the perfect area. That log where they want to make the hole, and they work on partially on basis. It shouldn't be very much like new or not very decayed. So they keep on taking on the wood and select it. Then only they lay the egg and they stick together unless the brood is like the fledglings are out and open for the next one. I think that makes it very special and incredible to look at. Yeah, and with this colorful bird, we have a few more colorful birds in that area are the kingfishers. This is the blue-eared kingfishers, of course, a very tiny one of the smallest. And all the kingfishers are very territorial, no matter how small they are. The way they behave, it seems like we own this place. And blue-eared kingfisher sighting is very difficult because they are broadleaf, dense forest area bird, and they would somehow hide in a very smaller patch, surrounded with leaves, maybe below that or somewhere near a small stream. They would select their perching area to have a proper source of food. So yeah, that makes us very, I mean, if you get to see a blue-eared kingfisher somewhere, it's like a joy in your mind. And the next come is the one of the most colorful kingfisher, I think, I mean, when we talk about the colorfulness, this is brilliantly colored rather, and with that beautiful red dagger-like bill they have. I mean, imagine almost the bill size is the half of the size of its own body, and it grows just to 14 centimeter, 13 to 14 centimeter. Imagine how small that bird is. And same, very territorial, and at the same time they're during the mating season or the breeding season offering foods to each other. And of course the parental care is amazing. Like, you would see during that period, you would see them coming with skink, lizards, even small snakes, mollusses, crickets, a lot of like variety of food, exactly like a cocktail of food they try to feed to. They are in Goa, they have to rely on good cocktails, right? So they do that. And with that, and what is fascinating is I really love to see it. I mean, I don't know, to photography is a different part, but they're preening themselves, dipping in the water, coming up on the perch, and then that shake, its colorful feathers, then preening. And sometimes they also, preen their head or just move the water by their wings. So I think it's so fascinating to see them like that in that tiny creature. But that makes it very special and a colorful one. And then I think Conan can start up with some other creatures of the night.
Oh yes, from the fun and feathery to the creepy and crawly, perhaps. Creature of the night. Yes, I think this is a great way to describe the tree frog. Now, while this is a widely distributed frog, it's also something that's very commonly seen during the season. And I think we were just talking about this earlier, one of the first calls you hear when the monsoon starts in India is actually are all the frogs, right? That's when they all come out. There's a sudden explosion in invertebrate activities. The frogs are out to make use of the time of plenty, but there's plenty to eat. It's also time to nest and breed and all of that. And the tree frog, you'll see them. I mean, living here, of course, in this country, we see tree frogs ever so often, not very often. But when the first rains hit, you'll hear them call, and their call is like a knocking on wood, almost like a rattling sound, and it's a very tentative call. It's not loud. It's not, neither is it soft. It's sort of a tentative, almost inquiringly asking, and it's like, when the frogs start responding to it, it sounds like Morse code almost. It's like, sort of a tap 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 tap, and there's this beautiful chorus that you'll hear out at night. And these frogs are called tree frogs, and they have specially adapted appendages which help them climb, not just on trees, but they're very commonly in the monsoon found in people's houses, in their own bathrooms. They like to hide behind the bathroom mirror, one of the favorite spots, and sometimes even creep up in the toilet as well. So they like, and they are capable of huge leaps. And commonly people also call them leap frogs in some places. So they're very, very slight, very agile frogs. And you can see the pictures here. They have these little suckers on their digits, which help them climb. Staying with frogs, moving to a much bigger one. This is the Indian bullfrog. They're huge. They're about the size and slightly smaller than the American bullfrog. And of course, during the monsoons, is breeding time, they'll change the colors. The females are much larger than the males. Males, of course, will call using these huge, their vocal sacs, which they bulb out and help them amplify the call. And the females are about 3 or 4 times the size of a male there. Now, a little bit of a local phenomenon that happens there. Now, the bullfrog in Goa, locally, they call them jumping chicken. Now, that's because till very recently, bullfrogs were considered a delicacy. Now, it was part of the diet, it was one of the things that we did, part of the local community. So frogs were being hunted. But there's been studies to show that there's actually been a mass hunting of them and serving them in restaurants and so on and so forth. So there's been a recent movement, a lot of organizations working in the area, and they've actually educated people on the importance of these frogs. Frogs are fantastic indicators for the health of the environment, and of course perform a very, very important ecological role. And so if you take one species out of the equation, then that's causing the entire thing to tumble. So there has been a movement to take frogs off the menu, and I must say that it's successfully, it is working to a large extent as well, and you hardly see them at least being commercially served. So that's a big win for the bullfrogs and for conservation. Another frog I like to talk to you about, I can talk about frogs all day. Both of us love it. It's one of our favorite pet topics. The other one here is much smaller. It's a small burrowing frog. Now, these frogs, again, and like I said, frogs love the monsoons. They love the rains. That's when the ground softens up, and then there's lots of insects that come out. Now, burrowing frogs can only be seen mostly during the monsoon. They go into the ground through most of the dry season. You hardly ever see them. One-off instance, probably if you're excavating or digging a foundation for your house, you might see 1 or 2. But otherwise, they'll only come out during the monsoon. And these frogs, again, have a very specialized adaptations because of their nature. So the blunt snout, which helps them burrow. Also, they have appendages on their rear limbs, and the digits, the way it's shaped, it helps them dig beneath the ground and go. But this is just a small. We were actually cherry picking what species to speak about. There's so much reptile and amphibian life. Well, so much biodiversity itself in Goa, and this is just a very, very, very few of them. So yeah, so still on the note of reptiles, I brought this picture here because this is something which I saw a couple of weeks ago, and when we were talking about it, I said, okay, this would be nice to share our viewers. So this is a picture of a vine snake, green vine snake, eating a Malabar gliding frog. Now, still on the topic of frogs, gliding frogs have this unique way, and you can see in a little bit of the hind legs of the frog here. They have these massive webbed feet, which they climb up to the top of the canopy. This is also a tree frog. And then they launch themselves off, and using the webbed feet on all 4 limbs, they're able to catch the air and actually swoop down to places. Now, the vine snake is a tree snake, and they can perform these acts of staying incredibly still or just moving very slowly to mimic the movement of a branch. And they have very, very differently shaped pupils. So look at its eyes there, right? And it's they have binocular vision. They have this huge ridge that extends in a long snout, and that actually helps them with a lot with depth perception. So this story here, I'm going to quickly, before I give it back to Arpita, we landed in this place, and of course, eyes are all over the place looking for things, and we saw this little bit movement in the mid canopy, and we looked up. The snake had this frog, and she was dangling with it. Now, this frog is a female. She had just laid. She just made a nest. They make a foam nest just over a small pond, and they lay their eggs inside. So when it rains, the tadpoles hatch, and after the tadpoles hatch in the nest, when heavy rains happen, the tadpoles then fall into the water where they spend their tadpole life. And so after they make the nest, the mother was climbing up into the canopy, and the snake had caught her, and obviously it had been waiting there for a long, long time. And it caught this frog, and it made a good meal of it. And in fact, when we had come back the next day, the snake was still trying to swallow the frog, because the frog obviously will bloat itself up, balloon itself up in matter of defense. But it took a full day for the snake to feed, and yeah, that meal will go a long way, at least a week or so before the snake will have to feed again. I mean, and for me at this point in time, I'm thinking, you know, a lot of people say, you know, Mother Nature and nurturing, but it is the cruel-hearted way as well. I mean, it is life. That's it. One end of life for one, and sustenance of life for this other. Sorry, I went a little philosophical there, but makes you think when you're out there in the wild. And yeah, this is just some of the species. There's a few more, and there's another snake I know you want to talk about, Arpita, so go on.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine how the snake would have weighed, because I was mentioning that I have taken a video for almost 3 to 4 minutes, and I haven't seen the vine snake moved even a millimeter. I mean, how patiently they can wait for their prey to come like close so that they can strike. We're talking about the vine snake. We have few more tree snakes in that area. There are cat snakes and all, but I have come across another bronze back. You would know that why is it called a tree snake? It's a non-venomous one. And just imagine in that clumsy picture, where do you see the snake? Okay, it's so difficult to find it out. It is right here. If you see the body of the snake out here, and somehow I managed to get the head shot of it. So these are there. I mean, wherever you walk, there could be something in the forest. It is like never it happens from the tiny creature to a bigger thing, but it's never like nothing. You cannot say that. And next comes to the hump-nosed pit viper. Another, of course, I love pit vipers. I have a soft corner like in my heart for them, but I'm scared of them as well. And this is a hump nose. The hump nose is because of the snout, which is like pointed upward. That's how it got its name. And like previously it was known that it can do only local venomation, but with a lot of data and a lot of study, it has found that its venom actually can be lethal. And till date, India doesn't have a particular separate venom for this viper. I mean, we have this polyvenom what we use, and this viper venom can actually damage your kidney, and then it has some hematological effects and also the failure of other organs. So now the study is going on that separately a venom could be there, because they can be lethal as well. But trust me, after knowing this about hump nose, seeing a hump nose is more special. So while I was taking the picture of a spittlebug foam nest, okay, and it was too much foam nest. I thought first that could be some bush frog, but bush frog doesn't do nest like that. So it was like I was asking the local guide out there, and a spittlebug, I mean, which species of spittlebug is it that created that foam nest? And I was on my knee, like bending down to look at it. The guide just whispered, hump nose. Hello, what are you saying? Hump nose, it's a viper snake, does it make a foam nest? Because my concentration was on that foam nest, and then I looked at him, he just pointed down below my knee. There was a hump nose exactly in this position, which picture I have given here. Okay, it was right there, and trust me, that day I felt like I'm Indiana Jones, you know, how he used to get scared of snakes. I just literally jumped off from there on my back, because it was a deadly thing to see. But anyway, that was the hump nose. Then the next day, I got to see the Malabar pit viper. I have spoken for last few slides, few webinars. So this Malabar pit viper, this fellow we have found in the wall. I mean, in the Western Ghats, there are the hilly mountain walls are there. So it was inside that hollow, maybe molting. That's why you can see the blurry eye over there. So that's how, but generally they look like this, how the right hand side pictures is all about. And yeah, the snakes and some lizards. Conan, if you want to
Yeah. Yes, one of the lizards that's actually very, very striking is the Nagama. Now, these are common lizards. You often find them in gardens. That's what they're commonly called as well, garden lizards. But what I really like and what, at least with this picture, really stands out. So the males go into this breeding color scheme where the reds are highlighted, and they do this fantastic thing where they actually stand up and looks like they're doing push-ups, where they actually posture themselves out in the open. And when you see a male standing there in an open area doing these push-ups, you know there's definitely a female around, and there's also other males around looking at them. And there's this whole bit of posturing. You see these males at different areas. And very rarely, sometimes they will actually, they're too close and there's a little bit of a wrestling match and a little bit of fighting that happens. But with everything green and brown and mossy, everything around, seeing a red Nagama is suddenly, it's, visually striking, like with the birds. It takes you away. Yeah. So yeah, the other thing when you're looking around in forest, one of the things to keep looking out for are skinks. Now these are small lizards as well. They're fossorial lizards. They love living on the forest floor. They have tiny legs, so often you mistake them for snakes. Also the way they move, but they're just beautiful animals to look at. When you get a chance to examine them closely, it's just very hard. They're super fast, and they like duck under leaf litter. But you see the most brilliant of colors as well.
Yeah. Yes, true. And the thing is, it's more like a roll, the egg roll and this thing of the Indian street food. The skink exactly look like that, roll inside a leaf. So yeah, talking about the lizard, and of course we have, even in Goa, we have the largest one. That's the crocodile, and this is a freshwater crocodile. As we are almost near the top of the hour, I'll just briefly tell you that Goa doesn't have crocodile in the beginning. Like, it's almost 500 years back when they have been introduced to these areas, to the estuaries, so that especially done by the rulers then, to control the invaders. Like, if the estuarine side is infested with crocodiles and stuff, so that's how it has been there. But the new study also says that the crocodiles are there nearby areas, offset of that primary region, but slowly then they disappeared from that area. But what is a questionable for this mugger? So this is a freshwater crocodile and living in these high salinity. Though crocodiles do have salt glands, but they become inactive because of their habitat. But this mugger, especially this area muggers have adapted to the salinity and in the saltwater area, and they have been like thriving almost in the eastern part of the villages of Goa. In every villages you will see the presence of the muggers. And also but during the nesting time, they somehow, it has been, in few cases it has been noticed, they move towards the northern, like the freshwater area, to lay their egg, to build the nest. And that's how, until date, a lot of study is going on, like how from the villagers, how do they see, where did they see when their hatchlings are coming out. So a lot of studies are going on to give us a proper report on this crocodile conservation. And it is also listed as the highest schedule in the in India's Wildlife Protection Act. And few more some forest.
So moving on to yeah, just going back to the smaller creepy crawlies around there. Another one of the fantastic things that I love to see about, especially in the monsoons here, is the emergence of, like I said, there's lots of invertebrates that come out, and one such of these is the forest scorpion. Now the forest scorpion is quite large, can grow about that big and quite fat, but actually very shy animals. So often you see them out at night, and one of the best ways to go looking for them is with a UV torch, and you can see in the inset picture down there. So scorpions have this compound, a protein, which they secrete, that actually comes between their exoskeletons and when they shed, called beta-carboline. And what it does is this compound actually reflects UV light, and what you see is this fluorescent, almost alien-like thing in the middle of the night if you're out there with the UV torch, and that's one of the best ways to see them. Forest scorpions are active hunters. As you see, they have large pincers, so they will go for large prey, could be a large grasshopper or maybe a baby mouse, things like that. They will raid and eat, and what they can't overpower with their pincers, they will use their stinger to envenomate and consume their prey. Another venomous critter, which is again absolutely stunning, is the tiger centipede or the scolopendron. We see them. These are a large centipede. They're not the largest centipede in India. We have some that grow larger than this in the Andaman Islands, but these are just strikingly colored animals. And for an animal that has very poor eyesight, you wonder why the color. Again, centipedes they feel around their way. Again, very fossorial, and you can see just for a scale of size, you can see Arpita's shoe there and how big that centipede is to her. Again, they have large mandibles and they can inflict a painful bite, which they use again to hunt their prey as well. So it is a predator, and they actively go out to hunt their prey as well. In the role of invertebrates, again, is another arachnid. Now, this is commonly called the Goan mustard tarantula. Now, you would normally associate tarantulas with South and Central America, but there's been several species which have now tarantula and tarantula-type species that have been described, and there's constantly new species being described every day from the Indian subcontinent. One way to find these tarantulas are looking on escarpments, so hewn out hillsides, cut down hillsides. They make these perfectly round burrows, and if it's an active burrow, you'll see a layer of web inside, which they make, and they'll often stand at the entrance of the burrow, especially at night, and if there's anything moving past, then they'll go out actively and catch it. So very shy, otherwise very hard to see them outside the burrows unless you're looking in the right place. So from all the the creepy and the crawly and the cool to the cute and cuddly, where we finish off our webinar.
Yeah, so after this, but it looks stunning no matter. But looking at this, the primates when we talk about, and this one, I'll just mention this is a bonnet macaque. And after the rain stopped, they were like jumping in this pool and like from the top of the tree. And this is how these two were playing. So I got this beautiful picture. But soon I'll just come to the next one, which is more special in the Goa's habitat, is the otters. In India, there are 3 species of otters, and we get to see 2 of them in Goa. One is the smooth-coated otter, and another is the short-clawed otter. Short-clawed otter had been like there since many years, and also they live in the brackish water. But for a smooth-coated otter, which is very rare in the brackish water, they mostly believed to be rely on the fresh water. So the smooth-coated water you might come across if you have done or you'll be doing the trip with NatHab in the Great Indian Grand India trip. When we go to Kaziranga, there are high chances to see the smooth-coated otters out there. But imagine that is a very new study which is happening in Goa, that in the Otter Conservation Society, that how could this freshwater animal is actually thriving. And the most important thing is that the smooth-coated otters are especially staying in the human inhabited islands. That means there are conflicts, there are things happening, but they have somehow managed, and there are a lot of evidences nowadays which have been found by camera trapping. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that the camera trapping and see the pincers of what do you call it? Oh shoot! This is the scat. Yeah, the scat of the scat of the otters. I mean, by seeing them here and there, they are actually, the conservation organization are actually mapping the localities and see the distribution where exactly the population is rising, and this is a threatened species. And of course, the conservation measures should be really high to protect the species, and so that how they have adopted in this like mangrove system, so that they can thrive there for long, though the number is decreasing day by day. So yeah, study is going on. Hopefully in another few years we will get a proper data of these otters from Goa. I mean, much more what we know now. And with that, I think we are about to almost we have reached our hours. And Rob, we are ready to take up questions.
All right. Now, before we get into the question and answer session, I would like to remind everyone that you can submit your questions via the question field in your control panel. All right, let's get to it. So let's, how did the Goa mustard tarantula get its name?
Oh, good one. I think the one of the ways is, okay, so the lighting, it has to be the right lighting, but if you have the right lighting conditions, it is actually a nice mustard brown in a way. So.
Aha, I see. Well, your picture was beautiful, even though it wasn't the mustard color. Yeah,
It was.
how dangerous are they to humans?
Tarantulas? Okay, so they okay, so all fine. Sorry, go on.
Not just the tarantulas, but also the forest scorpion.
Okay, so all of those animals, the forest scorpion, the centipede, the tarantulas, they're all venomous, right? But their venoms are not potent enough to inflict severe damage on humans. I have been bitten by 2 out of the 3. Sorry, I'm not saying it as a matter of pride, but it's actually, apart from a lot of pain and some swelling, it's actually nothing. There is, however, a species of scorpion, a fat-tailed scorpion. It's gray and has a very, very bright red tail, much smaller, about yay big, which they've actually shown, some studies have shown that it can be fatal. And the general rule with scorpions is the smaller the scorpion, the more potent the venom is, because they use it because they have small pincers, which means they have to rely more on the venom to kill the prey, not just overpowering it with its pincers. So the forest scorpion, large pincers, less potent venom. Fat-tailed scorpion, small pincers, more potent venom.
Great, thank you for addressing that. Now, Arpita, one of our guests, they love it when you say, trust me, and then follow up with some astonishing facts that we've never heard of before. They just love that. And they were very glad that you weren't bitten by that hump-nosed viper. Now, is that a venomous snake as well? Were you in danger?
Hump-nose has quite a potent venom, and there are many cases that it has been fatal. So that's now the new new study, or they have been trying to create a venom, anti-venom for hump-nosed peat viper. Previously, there were no anti-venom for this, but after some fatal data, we are trying to get one anti-venom for hump nose. And yes, I was really lucky that I didn't get bitten by the hump nose. It was so well camouflaged. Hardly I could make out.
Well, like Indiana Jones, you persevered. We love that. Unfortunately, that's going to be the last question that we have for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you guys for any closing comments you may have.
Conan?
Sure. I just want to say thank you to everyone for listening in. Yeah, I mean, it's hearing a bunch of naturalists talk about a subject they love. Well, we're not complaining, but we hope that it showed you a part of this wonderful country which has so much to offer. And so thank you for coming on this virtual journey with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being there. And of course, Conan, not to mention that this small state has leopard, tiger, sloth bear, a lot more. So as soon as we get to see them, again, we will come to share our sightings with all of you. Till then, thank you so much. Have a great day. Goodbye, Rob.
Conan, Arpita, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. If you're interested in information on how you can travel with NatHab, give us a call at the number on your screen or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next Daily Dose of Nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.